Welcome to What in the World is Happening, a show about Maitreya, the world teacher, and the masters of wisdom. I'm Tim Boutskis. I'm broadcasting live from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. And with me today is Sabina Qureshi, also from Edmonton. Hi, Sabina. How are you?
Hi, Tim. Really good.
Great. And also with us is Dick Larson from Southern California, US of A. Hi, Dick. How are you?
Hi, Tim. Well, I'm well, thank you. Glad to be here.
Great. So we broadcast live on most second and fourth Saturdays of the month. But coming up here, we're going to be off for the month of May and then broadcasting live again on most fourth Saturdays of the month starting in June. And we broadcast live on Facebook Live, Zoom, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. And welcome. We're glad you could join us. At the end of every episode, I'd like to say that we do a wonderful meditation. It's very powerful, simple to do. Anyone can do it over the age of 12. It's called transmission meditation. Great way to help the world. We hope you can stick around and try it with us. We'll be doing it live at the end of this show as well. And today's topic, cooperation, humanity's path to a brilliant future. Great topic. We hope you can ask us some questions as we go. We're going to explore this topic. Very excited to do so. We have John and Cielito doing our tech support that can answer some of the questions or put them forward so we can answer them live during the show. So let's begin. Cooperation.
Yeah, it's incredible how important this is. And especially now, I think all of us feel that there's a real need for cooperation on every level because we have so many different kinds of crises facing ourselves. We're in the midst of problems galore, regardless of in which area you look. What you see is the collapse of the old way of doing things, and we don't yet have a new way of doing things. And some people are working on solutions, so there is progress. I'm not saying there isn't, but there are really big questions facing us right now in almost every area of life and at a global level as well. Climate change, the refugee crisis, war. We have so many things going on that we need to solve.
And Sabina, I really like what it says here, paralysis and unworkability. I think everyone feels that a bit. You know, when facing all of this, it feels like we're really stuck, like just things are not working and these problems keep getting larger and larger. It's global. We're all interdependent. What are we doing? We're caught. It very is a crisis, very much a crisis situation on all fronts is what it feels like.
Right.
Absolutely.
And sorry, Dick, go ahead.
I was just going to say, absolutely. Humanity is kind of stuck right now. The classic systems that we have developed to help us, including healthcare and education and all that other stuff, they're just not working anymore. I mean, they're barely serving our needs and not serving the needs of millions. So it's time for some changes, and we're going to talk about that.
And, you know, one of the things that Maitreya, the world teacher, has said is that we have the systems that we have right now are built on a lack of understanding of who we are and a lack of understanding of our relationship to each other, that the inner reality is that we're all connected. And so right now we have systems built on greed, division, competition. They create inequality and separation. And so they just go in the wrong direction. They don't achieve any really useful results, except for maybe a few people who are benefiting financially from these systems.
And so one of the major reasons these systems are in place and also why they're not really working anymore is because we're in a major transition between two great ages. The age of Pisces and the age of Aquarius. Now, this isn't just an astrological thing. This is an astronomical thing. It's called the Procession of the Equinoxes. So our solar system, every few thousand years, comes into alignment with a different constellation of the zodiac. And these great energies of these great constellations flood the solar system, flood our planet. And during the age of Pisces, for the last few thousand years, we built our systems based on those energies. So those energies allowed us to individualize, to go from being sort of sheep-like people to strong individuals with qualities. That's the good side of that Piscean energy. We were allowed to develop and understand ourselves as individuals with great qualities. However, the overemphasis of that energy means that the systems support very few individuals. And so you have in your religious, political, economic systems, a support for very few people, and it doesn't look out for the larger group. And so as we move into Aquarius, the Aquarian energy has to do with group. So this is why right now we're in this crisis. We've got one leg in Pisces and one leg in Aquarius, because we're shifting under the impetus and the influence of Aquarian energy. And so that energy is getting stronger day by day.
Piscean energies are dying out, they're withdrawing. And that's what we've had everything built with for the last 2,000 years. So no wonder they don't work anymore. Their energy is being withdrawn. That's why they're collapsing. They can't do anything but collapse. Then in is coming the new Aquarian energy, which we're showing you here is very different. Aquarian energy, like Tim said, supports group action. That's why people marching in the streets could be so effective. It's no longer about the powerful individual. It's about the individuals working together in group form. So we're moving from an individual to a group world. We're moving from a me world to a we world, from a you or me, where there's a winner and a loser, to a you and me, where it's win-win. And so, we're trying to say that these energies are really changing the way our world is going to work in the future, because groups are going to make the difference in the future. So we're ultimately moving from competition to cooperation, from competing with each other head to head, which is the way our society has been built. Make it cheaper, make it faster, make it better so you can sell more, to cooperation, working together to achieve goals. It's a powerful switch. And, people really resist change. So, and some people, especially the younger people right now, they see the need for change. They can't wait for change. So it's an interesting time to be alive.
And in many cases, the younger people are the ones pushing for the change and articulating what's needed and why. And so just to kind of do a little recap here on the difference between cooperation and competition, if you look at what these two different ways of functioning generate and the types of systems that you would expect under each of these ways of functioning, with competition, what we end up with and what we have now, what it leads to is commercialization. Because when you're competing, you're always trying to see if you can outdo somebody else. And that can be undersell them, lower price, better margins. So everything is being monetized. Everything's being, what's that word when you're looking at things as objects? There's a word, and I can't think of it.
Objectified, yeah.
Objectified, that's right. And so you can't see the value of anything for itself. So that's why to a large degree, when we look at how we're treating the environment, we're not taking care of it, and we've been just exploiting our natural environment because we've only been looking at it in terms of what we can get out of it and how we can monetize that or commercialize that.
And commercialization treats people like objects. We are buyers, we are consumers. We're not real people with souls, with goals in life. We're consumers. That's how we're seen by the commercial world. And so it's very dehumanizing and not healthy for humanity at all.
So you lose sight of human values, human rights, the planet, the environment. And then there's this myth of healthy competition that everyone says, well, what about healthy competition, right? We want affordable products. But the thing is, we have to look at the real cost. What is the real cost of the planet? I mean, if thousands of companies produce the same product to compete with each other for an affordable product, they're squandering the resources of the world, plundering to make the same product. Is that really necessary? It's not healthy. There are huge costs, but yes, we do need affordable products. I mean, people need to be able to buy something, but there are other solutions to that. Nations could invest in producing affordable products instead of investing in weapons and war, for example. You don't have to have 1,000 companies doing it, maybe a couple.
There's no such thing as healthy competition. I agree, Tim, because whenever there's competition, there's a winner and a loser. actually there's a winner and a bunch of losers. And then that's no good for anybody's self-esteem or self-worth. And so, a great example of this is in the Olympics, where in the individual Olympics, there's a winner and everybody else loses. In the Special Olympics, everybody's a winner. And there's a huge difference. And so there's no competition, really. I mean, they go through the motions of racing, but everybody's a winner. And that's the way we need to move as a society in the world now.
That doesn't mean you wouldn't be, you could think of it that you're competing with your own personal best. You're aspiring to be the best you can be, but it's not a competition in which somebody has to lose. I think that's really the question. And we've used this idea of healthy competition, and we've also said, look at Darwin's theory of evolution, survival of the fittest. See, that's the rationale. That shows that this is really a true thing. It exists in nature as well. However, if you look more closely at what biologists and evolutionary biologists are saying nowadays, people who have spent decades studying real life animal populations, what they're seeing is, in fact, that's not how it works. There's a tendency, if an animal is sick or weak, it'll die, and that's not surprising. But excuse me, what they actually see a lot of is cooperation within animal populations, cooperation to help raise the young, to help get food. So in fact, this really is a myth, and it's time for us to just put it to bed, put it to rest.
Yeah, the survival of the fittest has changed, because now if humanity is going to survive, we need to work together to fix our world and our lifestyles. So it's about working together to survive now.
And so the question is, how do we do it? Now, according to the Masters of Wisdom, it's actually quite simple. But the problem is that we're conditioned. We're caught in this net of our own conditioning, which is trapping us in certain thought forms, certain ideas. And so it's like being a fish in water. You don't realize that you're in this conditioning because it permeates your entire way of feeling, thinking, and being. But that's a process that we're all coming out of. People are starting to realize, oh, wait, it doesn't have to be like that. There could be an alternative. We could seek something else.
I think many people
we're often
are
not aware of
experiencing.
our conditioning. I'm sorry, Tim.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We're not aware of it. And I think people are starting to become aware of a disconnect. The world is changing. We were talking about the different change of ages. Things are
Yes.
changing so fast that we keep getting caught in, well, that's how I thought things were and how things worked, but they're not. So there's a disconnect between reality and your own conditioning. So you're caught like that fish in the age of Pisces.
Right.
And yeah, and then looking for a way to change. So that and the competition, cooperation, they're two different energies. So within us, we have competition. We've been conditioned to that, and we in our hearts know cooperation. So you can ask yourself, like, am I being competitive in this situation or cooperative? So you kind of have to do that with each thing to test your own and build your awareness of your conditioning, I think. And this would be one thing. I think competition stifles the intuition. So if you feel like your heart is speaking, but it's being stifled, you might want to look at that. Is that competition in there?
Intuitively, deep inside, we're all looking for balance in the world, justice in the world, and unity with others. However, competition stifles that, and it's caused a real problem. And so we need to become aware. We talked earlier about we need awareness of our conditioning, all of the old ways that we've just taken for granted that don't, like Tim said, don't have to be there. So we need awareness of this conditioning in order to see opportunities to make life better, to create more unity, to create more competition. Very important.
And sort of the underlying goal, if you will, how do you really put into action cooperation? Well, what the masters say is that it's a recognition of our oneness, of our connectedness with each other, that makes cooperation not just obvious, but easy. When you see that, once you acknowledge this oneness, once you feel it, then cooperation is easy to come to because it makes sense as the path forward to create good for all. That desire to create good for all arises out of your inner feeling of connectedness with others, not feeling separate, not feeling alone. And the fact of the matter is, first of all, that we are connected to each other. But secondly, we feel best when we are experiencing that connection. I'm not saying you don't need alone time. Everybody may need alone time, but that sense of connectedness, we're social animals. We thrive on that.
Yes, we are social animals. I was going to say that. That's very good. We are all brothers and sisters of this humanity. And we are starting to recognize that. And the more that impacts us, the more we raise our awareness of our relationship with each other, and how close we really are. We're one family, humanity. And so that's why the idea of sharing things, come out. Because a family of 4 that only has enough food for 3, they don't decide which one's going to starve to death. They share the food between the 4 of them so everybody's okay. Well, that's what humanity needs to do more of, because we are one family.
And this is something I think all of us are aware of now, is that only cooperation and justice will save us from the disaster that we seem to be creating. In terms of people are talking a lot more now about climate change. Google just had their little image, I can't remember what it's called, that they put up every time on the website when you want to search for something. Well, now they have like a time lapse photographs going back like 20, 30, 40 years and showing you the difference in how much snow is on a mountain, or how big a lake is, and you're seeing it, or corals, how they're dying. And so you're seeing these changes that we've all been hearing about. It's in the news all the time. This is happening, that's happening. And I found that very effective, that little Google thing, because just seeing it visually really made it clear what a big change there has been.
Yeah, and how fast things are moving. I mean, every day I think we see also how competition is not working, how the commercialization is not helping, and how things are worsening and worsening because of that. And we also see at the same time all of these new movements of cooperation and groups of people trying new things and trying to make changes, and that's increasing daily as well. And it seems pretty evident, as it says, only cooperation and justice will save us from a disaster of our own making.
Yeah.
Because of that interdependence.
Right, exactly. And I think that the people who are most vocal about being against, cooperation, are usually people who are benefiting right now from the way the system is at this time. But they are in a very small minority. The vast majority of people are not benefiting from the way the system is right now. And so for most of us, it's clear that there is really only one way forward. And so what we'd like to do now is talk about some examples, things that we see around us in our lives. Where can we start? And also just examples that can serve as inspiration. So starting at a personal or individual level, things that we can do to promote cooperation. Now, these are really, really simple things. But for example, you're in the grocery store and you have a lot of items that you're buying, and someone comes up behind you and they just have a few. Well, you can let them go ahead of you, because it's not going to make much difference in terms of when you get out of the store, but it'll make quite a difference to them if they wait behind you or if they're allowed to go ahead.
I've done that, and their face changes completely. All of a sudden, there's a softness in their face, and they smile and they say, thank you. I mean, they've been acknowledged, I mean, it's a very cooperative thing to do, and it has a tremendous impact.
Yeah, it's recognizing that other people's needs can be met without you losing.
Right.
It pulls you out of that operation of mind.
That's right.
Very much in commercialization, it's operation, not cooperation. Right?
Right.
It's very mechanistic, right? And so just a small moment of cooperation can work magic in that moment. letting a car into your lane during rush hour. That can be miraculous sometimes.
It absolutely can.
Something I'd like to comment about all these things that we're showing too is that you're not a loser if you do this because of such a thing called karma, or the law of cause and effect. If you let a car into your lane during rush hour, I promise you at some point in the future, somebody's going to let you in during rush hour. Same thing with the shopping line. Same thing with cutting people off in traffic. If you don't do it, people aren't going to do it to you. That's how the law works. That's how life works. So we all benefit from this kind of cooperation. And it's a very personal thing.
That's right. What about family members who have a different point of view, for instance, about politics? Some people say never talk about politics or religion at the dinner table. But, okay, that's one way to deal with differences of opinion. There may be others as well. But the idea that you coexist, you share, you cooperate, you don't have to agree. Cooperation doesn't mean you're always going to agree, but it's a way of working together. And not being oppositional, not being confrontational. I think that's really what the question is.
And I think everybody in the last few years has had at least one dinner like this.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, this is happening a lot now, especially in America, but worldwide, especially in the United States, but worldwide. And that doesn't mean you don't talk to them. Maybe you decide not to talk about politics. Maybe that's the healthy thing to do. But you continue to communicate, you continue to value them in your life. You just don't talk about politics or whatever it is. I mean, that's a way of cooperating. So, and it takes communication. We're going to get to that in a minute.
And then what about divorce? That's quite common these days. But cooperating with your ex for the good of the family. Let's say you have children. It's just a way of making things work more smoothly, and it's not difficult to do, but it does require a real intention.
On a personal level, cooperation has a lot to do with being willing to not be right all the time. And when you're right and you're right, and then there's an argument, and then there's a separation, and all of that stuff going on, rather than the give and take of a cooperating spirit, which changes everything, even divorce relationships. Yeah, I mean, I've seen that happen, and it's magical. It's magical. So it's about not having to be right all the time.
Right, in favor of a common good, something that is good for the larger.
Exactly.
Yes.
Thinking of others first sometimes.
Yeah. Right. And so on that note, for example, in your community, volunteering, participating in your community league here in Canada, we have community leagues in each neighborhood who put on courses. They do bottle drives, they do daycare, they do a lot of things. So you can participate at a local level as well. You can be active. There are lots of ways you can help out. For example, donating to food banks, donating to charities, community gardens, recycling. There's a lot of things you can do in your own community that are a form of cooperation. You're cooperating with others to promote the good for everybody.
You may as well get started now, because this is where the world is gone. These are the Aquarian energies, and they're transforming.
We have to look after one another.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then we can go to, for example, the national level, like at the level of each country. Now, in some countries, we have free public education, maybe at all levels or some levels. It depends. Every country is a bit different. What about unions and co-ops? For example, United Farmers. These are all forms of cooperation in which groups work together to benefit everybody in the group.
For the welfare of the group, right.
That's right. And it's something you can't do as an individual. You have to do it as a group.
Yes.
Another thing is progressive taxation. And that simply means that those who earn more pay a larger percentage of income tax. So if your income is greater, your percentage of what you pay in tax is also higher because you have more. So you won't be at a loss. You won't be losing out by giving a little bit more. And that's very common in most countries these days. Universal healthcare is something that is not perhaps common all over the world, but there are many, many countries, especially the more well-off countries, that do have universal healthcare, which is paid for out of everybody's taxes. So it's a form of cooperation again. Everybody pays in, and then those who need the services benefit from it. And it's a service that's there for everybody. Either it's free or a very low cost, so that it's available to all. And welfare, unemployment benefits, that's also a form of cooperation. Again, everybody pays in. When you're working and you have a job, you're paying in. Every time you earn money, you're paying into those funds. And then if you lose your job, those funds are there to help you at that time. So again,
safety net.
That's right. And something, we've put this on the list, universal basic income. It is being trialed in some countries now. I know in Spain, they've started using universal basic income. The pandemic really brought out the need for this type of program because a lot of people lost their work, their livelihood. And it's a very simple idea, again, based on the same as universal healthcare or progressive taxation. The idea is everybody pays in and then everyone benefits from it as well. We did a show about this a while ago, and we've talked about it on a number of programs, but it's something that's very interesting. If you're interested in the idea of cooperation, excuse me, at a national level, I recommend you read up on it. UBI for short, or Universal Basic Income. And it just means a basic income. That means an income that's enough to live on. So you won't be able to buy like an expensive car, but you'll be able to have a car, and it'll sustain you. So that you know you have an income, regardless whether the change in the job market affects your earnings or not. You have this basic income. That right there creates a lot of security and a lot of peace of mind for people, especially people who are on a lower level economically, who aren't earning a lot. So it's a huge thing to do.
You could think of it like the body, which is a very cooperative thing. Your limbs, the brain, the senses, the ears, everything works cooperatively. And if you think on the larger level of humanity working like that body, it distributes energy, circulates the blood. You know, you need to circulate health, circulate funds so that people have what they need. So everyone has their basic needs met, that life-giving blood or energy. You know, your senses, you see something, you see food, your mind, the eyes tell the brain tells the hand to pick the food, puts it in the mouth, you digest it, it circulates it through the body. So something like that, very cooperative. And international cooperation, United Nations, right?
And it may not be working as well as we'd like it to, but it is the one international body we have where all of the countries of the world are represented and ideally work together and cooperate.
It needs some fine tuning, but it's there to serve us.
And the World Health Organization, again, maybe it's not working as well as it could, but it is one of the big organizations concerned with public health on a global level. And this is very important because, as we've seen with the pandemic, public health is something that you can't contain within borders. Diseases are transmissible and they just go across borders. So we have to work together.
Yeah, these days, these organizations are very active and they're under a big stage of growth, I think. You know, they're learning, like we said, it's not perfect, but there's a lot of movement, a lot of growth within these organizations. The European Union, another example.
And the European Union did something called, they took away border controls within the countries who are members of the European Union. And so they called that the Schengen zone, because I think Schengen was the city in which they made the agreement. And so what it means now is that if you're traveling within the European Union, it's almost like one big country. And it aids the flow of people. It makes things much simpler. And I can envision a time when the whole world works that way, when we stop being so protective of our national boundaries.
Our information is that in the future, you will not need a passport to go from country to country. That's how open the borders will be with this growing sense of international cooperation.
And exchange students, that's something now that's very common in higher education, and even at the secondary level. Very often, if there's a program set up in your community, you may be able to go and study for a term in another country and be exposed to a different culture, maybe a different language. All of these things aid mutual understanding and cooperation, because people are exposed to life in other parts of the world, and it's a very powerful thing. And
sharing of
yeah.
scientific information, unprecedented during the pandemic. I mean, yes, there were limitations and some things weren't shared and issues, but I think never before have we had such an exchange across the globe of scientific information.
Yes.
And it's a sign of cooperation. The more open that sharing is, the more we all benefit. We move away from the competitive nature of patenting scientific discovery and profiting, more so to the sharing of that information for the sake of that and the benefit of humanity.
And
So
then
that's a
there
step.
are MOOCs, massive open online courses, which are available at many institutions. Many universities offer these courses. They're free. You sign up, you do them virtually from home. I think in some places before the pandemic, you could actually go and attend classes. But they're a wonderful way to share information. They're a wonderful way for people to be able to learn and grow, simply because institutions of higher education are willing to share and cooperate with the community. So there are amazing tools these days in terms of cooperation and sharing at the level of knowledge and information. There is so much now because of the internet and because of this idea that is growing. And this is largely the Aquarian energies that are really stimulating this idea of sharing information, sharing techniques, ideas. Yeah, there's so much out there.
Yeah, and another example of this is that demonstrates that nations don't have to, or governments don't have to necessarily set up the international cooperation. Doctors Without Borders. I mean, that's an international organization that has just formed its own self and decided to go help people who lack health care. I mean, that's an international example of cooperation that really doesn't have much of anything to do with governments setting it up or anything like that. People just decided to do it. So these are indications that this is the direction we're going and that we need to go.
Right. And so I read this recently in The Guardian, this quote from the head of the International Monetary Fund, Kristalina Georgieva, and she was saying basically like a warning kind of that 75 years of development gains are being put at risk by a splintering of international cooperation. She said, right now we've reached a watershed moment for global partnerships to tackle a range of issues, because there's a lot of disagreement in the international sphere about how to do things or what should be done. But she mentioned some of these issues, these big emergencies, the climate emergency, ongoing wars. People are focusing more perhaps now on ongoing wars because of the war in Ukraine, but there have been wars ongoing all the time. Yemen is a good example of a war that's been going on for quite a few years. We know that Syria has been in a state of war for also a number of years. There's the pandemic, and then rising inequality and poverty right now, largely because of the pandemic. But these issues, poverty and inequality, have been with us for a very long time. And we were making gains. There was a real push to decrease poverty and inequality, but the pandemic has really set us back. And so what she's basically saying is that we're interdependent. No country can solve these issues on its own. And it's so obvious that cooperation must and will continue. There's no other way forward. I think this is more and more clear just about to everybody.
Yeah.
And we have another quote here this is from Albert Einstein. He said, "Today we must abandon competition and secure cooperation. This must be the central fact in all our considerations of international affairs. Otherwise, we face certain disaster." And I think we can all agree with that. It's not
very
hard to
obvious.
see.
Yeah.
But it's sometimes when someone like Albert Einstein says it, then somehow it has more impact, right, than if I say it or you say it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite an insight.
Yeah. And so what we want to talk about now is sharing the world's resources, because that's the next major area of cooperation required to solve world problems. Basically, if you look at the instability in the world, it largely stems from inequality, lack of access to resources, lack of security. And as long as we're in that condition of instability globally, like maybe I in my life have stability because I live in a country maybe where I have healthcare or I have enough income that I have my own personal stability. But as long as there are people across the globe who don't have these things, that creates an imbalance and an instability, which is going to just jeopardize and put into danger the stability of the whole world. And so there's really only one way to solve that, and that's by sharing the world's resources.
Masters of wisdom, also known as the ascended masters, they say that sharing is the only thing, international sharing is the only thing we haven't tried. And that it's time to try it because it will work. So this is going to be a real interesting experiment.
That's right. And we have experience in doing this already. After World War II, there was something called the Marshall Plan that was put into practice or put into motion. And this was basically a cooperative effort by the United States. I think the idea came from the US, but it was not just the US who did it, but all the countries who were able to help did in the rebuilding of not only Germany, but all of Europe after the devastation of World War II. So the idea was, it's not that, oh, we won the war and we're going to go off and be the victors, but rather we're going to turn around and look at what has happened to others as a result of this war who have lost, and we're going to raise them back up and put them into an active state where they can participate in the world economy. And
Right.
that's what led to the enormous prosperity after World War II.
General Marshall was a United States Army general, and he came up with this idea that the developed countries of the world should all contribute so that we can rebuild Europe, because Europe had been so devastated in World War II, including Germany, the aggressors. And that's what the Marshall Plan did. It completely redeveloped and rebuilt all of the devastation in Europe, including Germany. I mean, it's a great example of international cooperation for the good of all.
Yeah, and so what we now have, this is the information we have from Benjamin Crum. He says that a new Marshall Plan type of action will be created, which will save the starving millions in the world. It'll be a great dramatic aid effort, such as has never been seen before. It'll be organized and distributed through United Nations agencies. And so this action, this plan, this is an example of cooperation on a global level. And he says this is going to take place. And I think there are many people already in the planning stages of this. The plans are already there.
And what this amounts to is this department or section of the United Nations will take an inventory of each country's production, what they produce, how much, and then they'll take an inventory of the needs of each country. And those countries that produce an excess of something that is needed by other countries will be shared with those countries, and vice versa. And thus the production of the world will be shared, not so that everybody has their wants met, but so that everybody has their needs met, and that the world is in balance that way. And this is a new kind of Marshall Plan that, like Sabina said, apparently the plans, our information is the plans have already been made, and it's waiting for acceptance, which we'll talk about when that will happen later. But it's going to happen pretty soon. It has to.
And in that plan, I mean, each nation keeps its uniqueness,
Yes,
its diversity. It gets its needs met. It moves out of competition, and it cooperates because its excess is going to be redistributed so that all the nations have what they need. And again, on that international body, if you cut off the circulation to your leg, this is the problem, right? Imagine if it's all distributed properly. Then you have this collaborative whole, this cooperative
Right.
whole.
Balance.
Unity and diversity. There's justice. I mean, this sharing is key to all of this.
Oh, that's great. And we have some more quotes here. We have one from Alice Bailey, who said in 1944, sharing and cooperation must be taught instead of greed and competition. And I think this is an important point because it's something that it might be natural to us, innate sharing and cooperation. But right now, our system and our educational systems as well, they teach us something else. And so we lose touch with that. We lose touch with that inner natural impulse to share and to cooperate. And so we get trained into competition and, greed is good, that type of thing. So we do really need to turn that around and change the way we educate children. It's already happening. We're seeing more and more that in preschool and in elementary school, and even in the higher levels, there's a focus on being fair, being cooperative, that all voices should be heard. And so the start is there. It's actually taking place. And then we have another quote. This is from Dwight Eisenhower, and this is from also the post-war period, 1953. He said, "No nation's security and well-being can be lastingly achieved in isolation, but only in effective cooperation with fellow nations." And I think at that time, after the devastation of World War II, it was very clear to everybody that cooperation was the only way forward. And I think that we've had such a long period of relative peace, especially among the richer nations, which have avoided having wars and conflicts, that it's been easy, and maybe we've become complacent and we've thought, well, especially in the West, where the idea of capitalism is really entrenched, we've ended up with this idea that, oh, this works. What we're doing is working. Because we're not paying attention to what the devastating results of this model are for the environment, for countries elsewhere where labor is cheap, where labor is not respected, where people's rights aren't respected. So we're starting to return to this point of view now and realizing, well, we're only going to move forward if we cooperate and if we take care of everybody.
Well, that's a very good point. We've created sort of a false reality, and now the real reality is kicking in.
That's right.
For the rich nations,
That's right.
Cooperation on a global scale looks nearly impossible to us now, but we shall have the help of the Masters of Wisdom. So we want to talk about the Masters of Wisdom. This is something for us that rings true. And in this show, we wanted to share this information with you. We don't expect you to just believe it by blind belief, but listen with an open heart and mind to some of this information. It's very hopeful, especially like we've been talking about all these crisis situations. But there's great help here. And this is the hopeful part. There's great advice and guidance from the Masters of Wisdom, who are our elders. They're from the human family. They're not masters over us. They're those who have mastered themselves through the process of evolution. And so who are they? We'll talk about them. Basically, highly evolved individuals that form a spiritual hierarchy. They've always been here working behind the scenes, guiding and inspiring humanity over the years. They have perfected themselves. They've perfected and demonstrate perfect love and wisdom. They've completed their evolutionary journey on Earth, so there's no need to reincarnate, but they are emerging openly. They're in the physical now. There are many masters already in the physical world, in physical bodies, here to help us with this great transition. They're fully aware of everything humanity's been through. They've had the human experience. They know all the ups and downs. They're very wise, very loving, and they're here to help us during this time, to guide us very loosely, not to infringe on our free will at all. For them, free will is sacrosanct. So it's simply to teach and guide and help us to solve the problems. We have to do the work, but we have incredible guidance here now.
And that's where we're all going. We're all trying to complete our evolutionary journey on Earth so that we don't need a body anymore to learn lessons on Earth. And we become perfected men and women, and we will all eventually become masters of wisdom. We're all at different levels of evolution. That's what makes the world go round. And they are who we are becoming. But they're teachers, and they're here. 14 of them are on the planet now in physical bodies. And before this age is over, there'll be over 40 of them walking amongst us, making suggestions on how life can be lived more completely, more fully, and so on. Yeah.
And they'll function like mentors. So they'll guide us as Dick and Tim have been saying, and they'll also show us by example. So
Right.
in terms of learning, it'll be a very easy process of learning. It won't be like school. Well, maybe for some people, school has been easy, but it's not going to be a punitive model, and
Right.
there won't be exams.
And they'll never force us to do anything because we have free will and that's sacred. And they know that.
Exactly. That's
and
right.
they would treat it. So they're going to make suggestions just like a teacher would. You know, you might want to try this and see what happens. You know, that's the kind of thing that's going to happen. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we want to also talk about Maitreya because he's one of the masters of wisdom. He's their leader in a sense, and he will be also, and he is now here, and he will continue to be here with us for the next age or astronomical age, the next 2,250 years. And he is somebody who embodies unconditional love. He's reached a level of his own evolution where the energy of love not just fills him fully, but he transmits it to all of us all the time. And so one of the things he says is we can connect with him in our hearts because he's already there. That energy of love is in our hearts. And he's here for everybody, whether you have a religious belief or not, whatever your point of view is about life, he's here for all of us to help us. And he's also expected by all of the world's major religions. Each religion may have a different name for the teacher they're expecting to come in a future time. But our information is that these names are all for one person, this particular master of wisdom, Maitreya.
And he will be the teacher and is the teacher for the age of Aquarius, just like Jesus was the teacher for the age of Pisces.
Quite often each age has a teacher that comes forward. And what's great about Maitreya and the Master's Wisdom coming through for Aquarius, as you remember, it's about group. They will demonstrate how to function perfectly as a group. They will demonstrate cooperation. And it's Maitreya and the Master who have presented the idea of sharing as a solution to the world problems from their vast consciousness and awareness of all of the conditions on the planet. That is a simple and powerful solution that they have suggested that we implement, sharing on a global basis.
Generally, my experience has been that the teachers who really embody wisdom are able to distill it down to something very simple and very easy to understand. It's never complicated. That to me is a sign that this makes sense. And we want to just share some more about cooperation here, about actually putting it into practice. How do you do it? It comes out of communication. For one thing, you need to be able to communicate, to share ideas, and you may need to disagree and work through those differences and find common ground, practical goodwill, tolerance, respect for others. All of these. Yeah, go ahead, Dick.
You notice it doesn't just say goodwill. You know, we sing about goodwill at Christmas here in the Western world, but I don't think we really are aware of what we're singing about. And this is practical goodwill. This is demonstrating the will for the good of others. And that's done through cooperation. That's done through letting people into traffic when they're stuck. You know, that's done through letting someone ahead of you in the food line who only has a couple items. That's practical goodwill. It's wanting the best for others, the will for good for others. And I don't think we think about it, but the word practical kind of wakes us up about that. You know, it can be practiced in everyday life. Tolerance and respect for others. You don't have to love everybody. Just be tolerant and respect them. You know, there's a big difference. That's called harmlessness. And harmlessness would change the world dramatically. So these are ways that we can demonstrate cooperation. You've got to have communication or it's just not going to work. You've got to talk about how you're going to work together so that it works, you know?
That's right. And here's another comment from one of the masters: don't just talk about love, do it. And don't just talk about cooperation, do it. So the talking is important, but also the doing, both of them.
Action.
That's right.
Yes.
And here, this is more from a master of wisdom. One of the masters has said that once we begin to cooperate, it will be as if a magic potion has entered our lives. Long-lasting problems will be solved with ease. The impossible will yield to the lightest touch. And in addition, a new civilization will be built. I mean, that's what really we're talking about when we talk about this plan of sharing, this new Marshall Plan, this idea of global sharing, that will create a new civilization. And he also says that out of this, a new science will be revealed, and there will be new understanding of life, of each other. It'll be a complete renewal of everything, all that we experience on a daily basis.
I think we'll be surprised as a human race once we start to seriously cooperate at all levels, including internationally. I think we will be surprised, the master says, by how easily things change, how easily problems are solved with just the lightest touch, and that's because the united will of a group accomplishes a lot with Aquarian energy, because Aquarian energy supports groups in action.
I mean, this sounds so great compared to what we currently seem to face of hitting our heads against the brick wall in a competitive nature. So we were talking about the two energies, competition, cooperation. When we choose the other, it's like this. It sounds like it'll be so easy to just choose once you choose that other path, that other energy, because they don't coexist. It's one or the other.
We're in the middle of a major shift on this planet.
Yeah,
you can either lead the parade or you can be behind it. I suggest you step out and lead it and start trying to find ways to cooperate, And
if any of you have tried some of this cooperation, I'm sure it's felt magical.
Yeah, I think we've all had experiences of that in our lives, whether at a small level or a larger one, that feeling of getting together with other people to do something together, and it just flows. There's an ease.
And that works on a global level too.
The Ageless Wisdom says that the soul seeks to serve, looks for ways to serve. And so when we serve, our soul just lightens up. It's like a bright light. I mean, you can feel it inside when you do something for somebody else, how good that feels. That's a soul response. I mean, it's not an accident.
Yeah, and some more things that the master says will happen once we begin to cooperate. We will learn the true art of living. And that's really fascinating to imagine, because right now, living is something that for many of us is very mechanical. We get up in the morning, we go to work, we come home, we take care of our children. It's not that there isn't joy and magic and beauty in our lives, but if everything is based on cooperation, so many hurdles, so many things that feel like hurdles for us now will disappear. And so the true art of living, I don't know what that is. I don't think I can imagine it really, but it's wonderful to just envision that there is going to be something like that.
The masters will teach us.
That's right. And we'll learn to appreciate the beauty of relationship. Many of us do already, I'm sure of it. We all have love and relationship in our lives, but we'll be able to appreciate this on a much broader level or a deeper scope.
Yes.
So I think there's going to be a great expansion of that. And he says, we'll know the joy and happiness of such togetherness. That is something that I think is amazing to contemplate. If you can imagine that feeling of togetherness spreading throughout a community, throughout a country, throughout the world, I think it'll blow our minds, actually.
Yes, and the internet is going to help make that possible.
Right? It's already doing that, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. And he says we'll grow together in the discovery of our divinity, because what the masters say is that all of us are divine, every single one of us. They are divine, we are divine, we share that divinity. It's a universal. Oh dear, I think this universal divinity is something that we don't usually think about in our daily lives. it's not something that we're focused on or aware of. We're too busy just making ends meet and doing what needs to be done. But the master says that, in fact, we are nearing the end of this era of competition in which it's just, day after day, do what you have to do. And he says, with its demise, violence and war, starvation amid plenty, greed and separation will likewise fade from the memory. That all of this is going to move into the past for us. And to replace these sorrows will emerge blessed cooperation to guarantee to men their essential divinity. And that's a very powerful statement. I get goosebumps. Just
the master said it doesn't look like it right now.
Yeah,
this is all coming to a close.
Yes. There's a great quote that came through the chat here too. If you're having trouble finding yourself in these times, the quote is, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others.
Yes. People want to serve God. I'll tell you how you serve God. The Ageless Wisdom says you serve God by serving others.
Yeah, that's right. Because in fact, the teaching of the masters is that each of us is God. This divinity is within us, and we are that divinity. We don't usually think that way. We think, I'm this person, I have this name, I live in this city, I have this house. But according to the masters, we are this divinity just as they are, and that this is something that underpins everything. It's our essential nature. It's who we are. It's what we are. And what I understand from what the masters say is that once we practice cooperation and when we help each other and serve, not only do we tap into that divinity, but that divinity in us grows, is able to express itself more. And like you were saying, Dick, we light up, right? The soul just lights up. And so that is something that we're moving towards now in the age of Aquarius, a time in which we're going to be experiencing that more and more.
This is so important because Maitreya and the masters say we have forgotten who we are. That's one of humanity's biggest problems right now, is that we've forgotten that we're all sacred. We don't treat each other like we're sacred. We have forgotten that we're really souls. We're not this physical body. We're the soul that's in this physical body. And that's who we need to treat ourselves and each other as. And that they come to remind us who we really are, which is we are divine. It's beautiful.
And they're here for everyone. They're here
Yes.
for everyone. It's not a religious thing. They're here for everybody to remind us of our divinity, that there's a bright future ahead. We are heading into a most miraculous, amazing future.
Yeah, and they don't come to start a new religion. Maitreya said, if you're in a religion that's working for you, great. If you're not, I come for you too. I come for everybody. So it's not about religion at all. Religion is part of spirituality, that's true. But he comes as a teacher. That's simple.
And not only all people are divine, all life is divine. All animals, all creatures, all plants, everything has this sacred. Same divinity in it. And this same divinity is what is expressing itself through all these forms. And that's something people are much more aware of now. When we talk about the environment, we realize that we're interconnected and that plants, animals, they're all working together. They all coexist together. It's a great web of life, if you will. And I think we're ready to bring this more or less to an end and to move to the next section about meditation. Now, this meditation we're going to do is also a form of cooperation. It's a meditation we do in groups, and we'd like to just describe where we get our information. Benjamin Crum was a disciple of one of the masters of wisdom. He was contacted telepathically by a master of wisdom and later by Maitreya. And he gave worldwide lectures during a period of about 40 years. And he didn't take any money for this. He gave interviews on radio and TV. The things he said during his lectures and his interviews, all of that was compiled into 17 books and translated into many languages. 4 of these are free. You can download them. We have the links. They're going to be put in the chat. And so this is who we got all of this information from.
He's also the one that started transmission meditation he was asked, he was in contact with one of the masters, and the master said, would you please, as you travel the world, start transmission meditation groups? So there are hundreds of groups doing this meditation. It's a group meditation, 3 or more people, not an individual meditation. There are hundreds all around the world now. Benjamin Crum said that people will be doing this for the next 2,000 years, this transmission meditation. So you may as well get in on the ground floor, try it with us, and see what you think.
And we'd like to leave you with another quote by the master. The opportunity arises now for a major advance in human progress, outstripping by far in speed and accomplishment all previous advances. And that's in a message that was called cooperation. It was about cooperation. And so this is an amazing thing to hear and to think about, that we're going to be able to just sort of take a great leap ahead. And I think it makes sense intuitively, if you think about it. How we've been progressing so far has been sort of in spite of all the obstacles that we've been creating by our competition, by our lack of understanding. So if those obstacles are taken away, it does make sense that we'd be able to suddenly just move ahead so much more quickly.
Yes, it's going to speed up. With the masters walking amongst us, making suggestions and teaching, evolution of humanity is things are going to speed up really fast. I mean, they said we'll be startled at how quickly some things are accomplished. It's our understanding that within 2 years of Maitreya coming forward openly to humanity, he's waiting for the best time to do that. We think it's going to be within the next few years, for sure. That once he comes forward, within 2 years, starvation will cease on the planet. I mean, that's how quickly some of these changes. It's going to speed up. It's going to be exciting.
Well, and it makes sense, because if you think about the way we now have this just-in-time type of supply chains, we have it all. It's all set up to make sure that things go where they're needed. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And we want to show you, these are the websites. Also, John is putting them in the chat where you can get more information, share-international.org. There are videos also on YouTube on the Share International channel of Benjamin Crum in his public lectures. Many of those were recorded at the time. You can watch him speaking. And books and downloads at share-ecart.com. So if you're interested, you can look at all of the books there. And the 4 books that are available for free download are also on that site: The Ageless Wisdom Teaching, The World Teacher for All Humanity, Transmission, A Meditation for the New Age. That's a book just about this meditation that we're going to be doing, and The Awakening of Humanity. So there are 4 titles that you can download immediately if you're interested.
You're going to love this information because it's stuff you've never seen anywhere else. Benjamin Crum was the latest revealer of the Ageless Wisdom. He released the latest version of the Ageless Wisdom to humanity, and it's in his books. And boy, they're interesting, I'll tell you.
And they're very conversational.
Not all very long.
That's right. They're easy to read. They're very conversational. It's not a difficult style of language.
And Share International has kept them very affordable on purpose.
That's right. And there's also a magazine called Share International Magazine. And this is published 10 times a year. There's no advertising. It's sold basically at cost. And this magazine brings together the writings of Benjamin Crum, of the masters, Maitreya, and also current events to show what's taking place in the world these days. Right now, it's very up to date, and to show how this is meshing together, what people are doing on the ground, action people are taking to put into practice these ideas of cooperation and sharing. And so it's a very inspiring magazine to read. There are also at times historical articles and lots of great photos, letters to the editor. We really can't recommend it highly enough. There's no other magazine like this out there.
And this is not a pulp magazine. This is very high quality, glossy paper with beautiful color photographs inside of UFOs and miracles, unexplained events that have been happening around the world. It's full of good news about the latest developments in the world that are helping people. There's a section where Benjamin Crum and his master answer questions from people, a Q&A section, reprinted from questions that have been asked when he was alive and that he answered. I'll tell you, this, if you want something uplifting in your mail every month or 10 months of the year, this is a good one to get. It's like $42 for a year. Very affordable.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't recommend it highly enough.
Right.
And that's also available at share-ecart.com, the same website where you can get the books and the free downloads.
You will love this magazine.
And so now for us to do some actual cooperating today, transmission meditation, a group meditation. It can only be done in groups. There's no other way you can actually do this meditation. And before we even begin to talk about it, we want to say that you don't need to believe in anything to do this meditation. You don't have to believe in energy or in the masters or in God or anything. You can just do it and see how it feels. So we invite you to take part and join us.
It's very much like gravity. It works whether you believe in it or not.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Just do it.
And so the technique is very straightforward as well. We begin by saying out loud a mantra called the Great Invocation. It's a very old mantra. It was introduced by Maitreya to the modern world in 1945. It's used around the world in many languages to begin transmission meditation, but it's also used on its own. You can also just say it on your own, and it's very uplifting and very powerful. And the basic technique for this meditation...
And it gets the master's attention.
It gets their attention. That's right. So when we do this meditation together, which we will do now in a few minutes, we say the Great Invocation together, aloud. We'll put it up on the screen. And after we've said it, each of us focuses, well, while we're saying it as well, focus on the ajna center, the spot between your eyebrows. And if you're not sure what that center is, it's a chakra, you can put your finger right there between your eyebrows and just feel that. And then afterwards, remember how that touch felt and just recreate it, feel it again. And that's how you put your attention there. And the more you do it, the easier it is as well. And once you put your attention there, you will be aligning your physical brain with your soul. And that way, the energies that stream through us in this meditation can go through your chakras. As long as your attention is there, you're in the meditation. What happens for most of us is our attention wanders. And as soon as you notice it's gone away, you can just say the word Om mentally, not with your voice, but just in your mind. And that'll bring your attention back to the Ajna center, and you'll return to that alignment for the meditation.
Yeah, thinking Om is a much higher vibration than saying it. So you don't say it, you just think it. And you don't meditate on Om. You just think Om, because your attention will drop. You'll notice your head will drop, or your eyes will be looking at the floor. Your attention will drop your solar plexus. And then to bring it back to your Ajna center, you just think Om a couple times. And with practice, it'll just snap right back there. And this Ajna center is the traffic cop for all the other chakras. So it decides where the energy should be distributed among your other chakras. So you only need to focus right here, and it will take care of all your chakras at once.
And as we were saying earlier, this is a meditation that is designed to, as a service to help the world. So what we're doing, the transmission part, as Sabina said, that we're transmitting these energies. These are great energies, the ones we've been talking about, the Aquarian energies, solar energies, cosmic energies of love that help with cooperation, equilibrium. They're healing energies. These great energies generally bounce off the backs of everyone. They're powerful energies, but in doing transmission meditation, you're stepping them down like an electrical transformer. You have this great voltage that's stepped down to something usable, like a plug or a flashlight. So what the service is for us is to sit and keep our attention here and transmit these energies to help the planet, to make those accessible to everybody. And we don't have to direct them. The masters of wisdom do that. We don't have to say, oh, well, we'll send this to Ukraine or we'll send it here. They have, with their awareness and knowledge and consciousness, they know exactly how much energy, in what potencies, and where to send them. In fact, they look at our chakra systems. They can see exactly how much to transmit through each person as well.
Yeah.
So
So they
it's
will
simple.
not harm you
It won't
sending
harm
this
you.
energy through your chakras because they know how much everybody can take. They can see
Yeah.
it. And I'll give you an example of trying to send it. You might think, well, I'll help send this energy to the Middle East for peace. For all we know, the masters are withdrawing energy from the Middle East for peace. I mean, or from Russia or the Ukraine for peace. So don't send it anywhere. Let the master scientists do that. Now, you can't have this tremendous energy coming from the spiritual universe going through your chakras and out into the world without experiencing personal spiritual growth as well. So it's really two yogas, karma yoga and laya yoga, the yoga of service and the yoga of the spiritual growth, the growth of the chakras. It's a powerful, powerful meditation.
Yeah, and so just on that theme of the power of these energies, there are just a couple of cautions.
Right.
Don't do this meditation if you have a pacemaker or serious heart problems because the energies are strong. And likewise, if you have any emotional or psychological imbalances at this moment in time, again, it's advised not to do this meditation.
It might overstimulate you.
That's right. And you can always come to it when you're ready at the right time.
Yes.
Also, if you're under the age of 12, your chakras haven't developed enough to take these energies. So it's recommended nobody under the age of 12 should do it. But starting at the age of 13, there you go. Or starting at the age of 12, I guess. Yeah. And then one more thing about, if this is a practical note, if you like this meditation and you'd like to continue doing it, right now, because of the pandemic, people have started to meet using Zoom or other platforms so that they can connect with each other virtually to do this meditation. Previously, people would meet in someone's living room or at the library or in some place where they could have a space to do it together, sit down together in the same room. But now, because of the pandemic, people started doing it virtually, and that this is continuing, and it's a very powerful way to connect and to meditate. And we're going to do that today, right now. But John has put links in the chat as well. So if you're interested, there are groups that meet regularly and you can join them.
Right. And you don't need to do anything formal. Just join the group when you're available and leave when you've had enough. You want to try to work your way up to at least an hour, but you don't have to start out there. You just do it as long as you could do it. And then it's not forced on anyone. So you just come and go. Nobody's going to greet you. Nobody's going to say goodbye. You just do the meditation and enter and leave at your leisure. Yeah.
That's right. There are people who are committed to being there, say every Monday at 5 p.m., but nobody is obliged. So yeah, as Dick says, it's very open-ended. You can just come in. I think with the Zoom groups, generally you do need to be there at the start because the host can let you in. Once they start meditating, not all, I think there's some groups where the host keeps an eye on the screen, but most people close their eyes. And so that means once they've started meditating, they won't see if there's anybody in the waiting room. So it's advised to be there at the time of the start. But then you leave whenever you want. And also when people do it meeting in their homes or in a meeting room, it's the same. People get up and leave when they've had enough because everyone might have their own sort of level of what's comfortable. And so there's no obligation involved.
We should also mention that a lot of people have received healings doing transmission meditation. It's not a guarantee or anything like that, but when the masters see a need, if karma allows, they will help people from time to time.
And I just want to also let everybody know that all of the links that John is putting in the chat are also available on the Facebook Share International Canada page. So we're streaming live to Share International Canada on Facebook, and on that page on Facebook, you can also see all of these links. And I think we're probably ready to start now. So we're going to say the Great Invocation together, and then we'll meditate for 30 minutes. And you're welcome, of course, to leave any time, but if you enjoy it, please stick around. Who would like to say the Great Invocation? I think the rest of us will mute out. We'll all say it, but we'll just have one person's mic on.
I'll go ahead.
Great.
Okay. There are visualizations which you will see when you read Benjamin Crum's books that you can do there's a little pause between each verse so that you can do the visualization, but you can check those out later. So let's begin. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth.
There's the bell. That was 30 minutes of transmission meditation. And I hope that you enjoyed it. And we just want to say, who do you know that might benefit from knowing about this, and who might be interested? Please share it with them. We definitely want to spread this information as far and wide as we can. We're always interested in reaching more people. So please do share this if you know someone that you think would enjoy it and would like it. We'd like to thank our tech crew, Cielito in Seattle, sorry, and John in Montgomery, Alabama. We'll be back at the end of June. We're taking the month of May off. And starting in June, we'll be broadcasting once a month on the 4th Saturday of every month. So we'll be back then. That'll be June 25th to talk about Maitreya's teachings and how they can be used in our daily lives to make things better, just on a personal level. I'd like to thank you both, Tim and Dick, for being here today. It was wonderful to do this show with you. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Sabina. Thank you, Dick. Thank you, Sabina. Thanks, everyone, for joining us.
Yes.
And we'll be back at the end of June. Have a great break. Have a great beginning of the summer. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
There it is. I think everybody's in the waiting room.